not to sound like a war on terror person, but like, say whether you call them the Houthis or whether you just call it, Bob's Pack of Pirates, right? So Bob's Pack of Pirates has been doing this for a while. If you're a private company or a military who, tasked partly with defending the waterways for free passage for your ships, do you have an obligation to go track down the ship back to Bob's and, shoot Bob's and blow up his pirate factory?
I mean, initially, no. I mean, if at some point you start racking up, like, if it's costing you, like if it's delaying you from arriving on time consistently, maybe.
Welcome to Loaded Talk. I am your congressman, the third most popular candidate to ever be. I'm Frank, and along with me, as always...
What's up, planet Earth? I'm Bean.
Stalled out on that one. All right, so we're in another week of this administration, and one of the big things that Trump ran on, of course, was ending all this foreign entanglement. He's starting, I think right now, today, he's supposed to be talking to old Pooty Poot about them signing off on the ceasefire with Ukraine. So that's something. Well, however, though, we haven't exactly stopped bombing, like, terrorists, or maybe real terrorists, whatever, in foreign nations before. Last week, it was Somalia, maybe 2 weeks ago. And we were just like, hey, we spotted was it Hezbollah or something? And we're just like, just drone strike, got them. And we probably did. But it's like, okay, that's a military strike in Somalia. That's an interesting choice. We have, what is it called? The authorized use of military force, which is basically Congress's way of saying you can just hit things in these countries whenever you want without declaring war. You're allowed to do it, I guess. And so it's broad. It goes back to the post 9/11 days, where, we're chasing terror. As long as we're chasing terror, then we can chase terror in, I guess, any place where they got Arab-speaking people or pray to Allah. In one of the more neglected areas of the world, we've been in this proxy war for years. So, in Yemen, there are these fellows called the Houthis, and they are not pleasant, Islamicists. They align with Iran, and they do get some funding from Iran. And so they've been kind of trying to make their way in Yemen. And so the Saudis have been like, hey, you can't do that. And so the Saudis have been fighting them. Problem is, Saudis means us. So we've been helping the Saudis fight the Houthis being helped by Iran in Yemen for years now. It's been happening. The Yemeni people are starving and dying of disease. And no one cares. Old Salty Jimmy used to lament in his days at CENTCOM. His job was to write the updates on Yemen, like what, I guess, weekly. I don't know how often you have to update it. But even among Central Command and, I don't know, everybody in the Department of Defense and the White House, and everyone's like, oh, Yemen. I'll get to that. So it was not necessarily a rewarding job. If things are still popping next week, we might have him on to really dive into Yemen a little bit. Because he is, I think him and Scott Horton are the only two people who have looked into Yemen at all in the entire United States. And not to knock Scott Horton, but like a lot of his is open source and, more journalistic kind of things. Whereas old Salty Jimmy there has been looking at some other info. which of course he can't even share all that with us, but he can give us a good idea. So what happened? March 17th, we got this. This is actually from the DoD website. U.S. punches back at Iran-backed Houthi terrorists in Yemen. So this is on St. Paddy's Day. Look, he's wearing his green. In the Red Sea, Iran-backed Houthi terrorists have been for years attacking U.S. ships and other nations, disrupting legal commerce for all seafaring nations. Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said today during his first public briefing with the Pentagon that the U.S. Central Command, at the direction of President Donald J. Trump, launched a series of attacks at key terrorist Houthi targets in Yemen March 15th, 2025. I think they did it for a couple of days. Over the weekend, Central Command forces initiated a series of operations consisting of precision strikes against Iran-backed Houthi targets across Yemen to restore freedom of navigation and reestablish American deterrence. The Houthis, he said, have been targeting U.S. military ships and aircrafts, as well as commercial ships and the ships of other nations. They threaten our personnel overseas, he said. Houthi terrorists have launched missiles and one-way attack drones at U.S. warships over 170 times and at commercial vessels 145 times since 2003. So that is 22 years. The U.S., Parnell said, will continue to use overwhelming lethal force against the terrorist Houthi targets until the U.S. achieves its goals. Which...
Glad it's not underwhelming, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to use underwhelming force until we get there. They're like, ow, stop it. Stop it. Right now, he added, it's not apparent that the Houthis are interested in stopping attacks against U.S. targets, firing at U.S. military personnel in the region, and shooting our ships and drones, which probably, if they're shooting at your drones, I don't know. Maybe you're flying your drones over Yemen, and I don't know if we can do that. I don't know. Anyway, they say they don't like it. Whatever. The initial wave of strikes hit over 30 targets at multiple locations, degrading a variety of Houthi capabilities. Included among those targets were terrorist training sites, unmanned aerial vehicle infrastructure, weapons manufacturing capabilities, and weapons storage facilities. It also included a number of command and control centers, including a terrorist compound where we know several senior Houthi unmanned aerial vehicle experts were located. The military does not care at all about making things easy to read or say, and their abbreviations are ridiculous. I hate them all, and then they have to have nicknames for the abbreviations to try and turn them into words. All right. You got an operation struck additional headquarters locations on the 16th, as well as weapons storage facilities. Houthi detection capabilities were previously used. The operation continues and will continue in the coming days until we achieve the president's objectives. In Yemen, he said Houthi military casualties might be calculated in dozens, but those are initial estimates. Currently, there's no indication of civilian casualties from U.S. attacks. They're saying differently in Yemen. The Houthis claim to have fired on the USS Harry Truman, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier based out of Norfolk. Quite frankly, it's hard to tell because while we're executing precision strikes, they missed by over 100 miles, he said. I would question anything that they claim and in the press they're doing or not doing. It's just very hard to tell, just based on the level of incompetence they've demonstrated. All right. So CENTCOM, they say precision, we hit military installations only, no civilians reported. In Yemen, they are reporting at least 6 dead children. I don't know. And I think they're saying 53 dead, including at least 6 children. That number will surely grow, especially as they continue these strikes. There's a lot of, I would say, righteous outrage from the MAGA community who did become more and more on board with ending foreign entanglements. Trump himself was critical of Yemen, saying you don't have to drop bombs. You can pick up a phone to solve problems sometimes. So there's been a lot of pushback. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene was like, we do not want another war, because Trump's like, hey, Iran, every time we get hit by something, by a Houthi, we're going to know we got hit by you, and we're going to make you pay. And it's just like, hey, we don't need another foreign war here. But, no, okay, and then Central Command, I don't need to flip to it, but they also said that on March 15th, the Houthis began seizing World Food Program's food stock from its warehouse. It contained over 5,700,000 pounds of commodities intended for the Yemeni civilians. And blah, blah, blah. It's not good to steal their food. And that the Houthis don't care about the people. I think that's true. Of course, one of the things that I always kind of get to is how often what looks like aid is provided by NGO so that the bad guys, quote unquote, can steal it, sell it, and buy arms to be a disruptor in the region. And, whether it's, I doubt the CIA is trying to back the Houthis, but maybe the Russians, or I don't know, maybe someone else plays the same game we play, I mean, China plays some games. It's just, hopefully that's all legitimate food, and that maybe some of it, like, if it's really legitimate, though, to feed these starving people, how come we got that many pounds of it in the warehouse? And how, is it not getting passed out? Did we have, 6 million pounds yesterday, and that's just what's left after, people ate until their bellies were full? I don't know. Yemen's just, I can't.
Yeah, are you counting packaging? Is that the weight?
I mean, probably, but still, there's just so much in there where it's like, okay, these people are starving. Why is all the food in the warehouse? Hopefully it gets distributed with some regularity. But, let's see.
I'm sure that process is real organized, too.
You know it is, Charlie. You know it is. All right. So there's just a fun little thing from Thomas Massey. We tweeted this today. You got Grok to express in billions of dollars, list the 5 countries and 5 corporations that will benefit most from U.S. military activity to eliminate shipping disruptions caused by the Houthis in the Red Sea, right? Top 5 countries that'll benefit. China, number 1, $9.6 billion, followed by Saudi Arabia. So, United States. To a degree. Germany, Japan, South Korea. That's the top 5. We are not in the top 5. The 5 corporations that'll benefit the most. AP Moller Maersk. German, obviously. Mediterranean Shipping Company. BP, Shell, CMA, CGM. I don't know. Probably oil still. I don't know who all these people are.
Maersk is a shipping company, too.
Yeah, and so...
Sort of, I think.
Yeah, I just don't know if they... Do they just generally ship, or do they have a...
I don't know. I just always see their containers.
Yeah, I've seen
their ships.
Yeah. So that's the thing, too. Say it is a German... assuming a German company, but we do see their ships all the time. If they're a transnational, shipping company, some of that could be bound for the United States. But, okay, so there's a lot of pushback, and and the press is definitely jumping on board because they will always jump on board to be critical of this administration, regardless of right or wrong. And so, it's killing civilians. It's, all the stuff we should be concerned about, of course, that probably is happening. But like I was saying earlier, we've been involved with this proxy war for a while, and as much as I would prefer that the administration not continue some sort of proxy, well, I guess with this, we're not so much using a proxy as we're using our own planes. But here's just something I want to show you from 2024, a year ago. Also, DOD. U.S. partners forces strike Houthi military targets in Yemen. U.S. and partners forces conducted defensive strikes against military targets in Houthi-controlled parts of Yemen yesterday, following a series of attacks launched by the armed rebel group against commercial ships operating Red Sea. Sounds familiar. But it wasn't just us. We had the UK And we have some support from some non-operational. What is non-operational support?
They didn't send any of their special forces in, I guess.
They were just like, hey, we support you, bro. So Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Netherlands were just like, we got you, dog. Let's see. They targeted Houthi missile radar, but that seems operational. All right, whatever. President Joe Biden said the strikes serve as a clear message that the United States and our partners will not tolerate attacks on our personnel or allow hostile actors to imperil freedom of navigation on one of the world's most critical commercial routes. I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and the free flow of international commerce. And the Secretary of Defense at the time said, this action is intended to disrupt or disgrade the Houthis' capabilities to endanger mariners and threaten global trade, one of the world's most critical waterways. Today's coalition sends a clear message to the Houthis that they will bear further costs if they do not end their illegal attacks. They did not.
What are legal attacks?
Isn't that a funny question, right? Anything we do?
Yeah.
It's like, no. We did it. It's fine. We did it. We don't break the law. I am the law. So that has begun or continued. Now, I will say that I do think it's okay. So as a country, right? And we have our ships that go out to sea to exchange goods, and they're private ships, but fly an American flag. And there's a problem with essentially pirates attacking it, right? And then there's waterways where we send a lot of money to countries to say, hey, let's keep these waterways open to us. And no one's going to fire upon our ships from land. Like our ships can come and go. We won't attack you. You don't attack us. Here's a sack of cash. That is one thing. I don't know if it's USAID, but it's something. We send money to different people purely about, some of these straits and everything. So if our ships are in danger, if somebody's shooting at our Navy or our private vessels, to a degree, I do think we have an obligation to defend them. I just don't know. I mean, like they said, like these guys are said they shot at the aircraft carrier and missed by 100 miles or something. And so it's like, all right, so they're not, and they're calling them incompetent. It's like, so they're incompetent. So they're not effective. They're not really a threat. It's kind of what you're saying. But also we have to bomb them back to the Stone Ages. So I don't know. I don't know how you get disentangled from these things either, Hopefully that just ends it for now. Hopefully we don't keep the war drums beating towards Iran. It sure feels like we are. And who was it? Was it Rand Paul or Massey? That was just like, the military industrial complex demands $50 billion in spending on war or whatever. So if you end the war in Ukraine, start a war in Iran, boom, we got your money there. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all this action?
I agree with your point that they missed by 100 miles. It's like tripping yourself up in soccer and rolling for 10 yards.
Yeah.
And then be like, hey.
Yeah. And it's hard, like it is a hard call. So making the assumption that our ships do have people running up on them, ramming drones into their ships and things like that every now and then, and doing whatever, shooting at them. What is there really a response strength that you should limit yourself to, right?
I mean, I know that the ships themselves are heavily armed. I mean, I see videos of on board of them fighting off pirates all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure they got some 50 cals and stuff.
So to me, that's really all you need. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess here's my question, right? All right, so you got this chunk of land and you're going to keep sailing past it in perpetuity, right? And they keep sending people out. They kind of fire at you. It doesn't really work. You fire back. Maybe you hit a boat. Maybe you don't. Maybe they're speedy enough. They go, okay, time to get out of here, right? And then next day again, repeat. At some point, do you have an obligation to go track them down? Like, instead of just waiting for another speedboat, like, do you send something to track their boat back? Should you try to, like,
immobilize it or whatever?
yeah, because it's one of those weird things, like, not to sound like a war on terror person, but, like, say, whether you call them the Houthis or whether you just call it, Bob's Pack of Pirates, right? So Bob's Pack of Pirates has been doing this for a while. If you're a private company or a military who, tasked partly with defending the waterways for free passage for your ships, do you have an obligation to go track down the ship back to Bob's and, shoot Bob's and blow up his pirate factory?
I mean, initially, no. But, I mean, if at some point you start racking up, like, if it's costing you, like, if it's delaying you from arriving on time consistently, maybe.
And this is where I kind of get, like, if I had a shipping company, I would hire somebody to, kind of be ready to launch, some sort of speedboat off the side, or maybe they're trailing or something, whatever it is. I'd hire probably a private security outfit. It's like, all right, they're going to be coming for us. I want y'all to follow them back and kill them all, And I don't know if that's murder. I don't know. Like, they're pirates attacking me. I'm going to defend my ship. And it's like get them all. If they go back to their, like, be prepared for them to get back to their friends. I need you to get them too, And then, like, if the next time you're out, there's more of them, it's like, let's keep going. So as a private individual, that's what I would do, right? And perhaps I would face some charge somewhere. I guess I don't know if there'd be some sort of UN thing, or if in Yemen there'd be a warrant out for my arrest.
Oh, no.
So the next time I'm trying to vacation in sunny Yemen with a pina colada, they were like, hey, I need another pina colada. They go, sorry, there's a warrant for your arrest. I'm like, what? I had no idea. So as a private person, that's what I think, right? As the state, I would say we would prefer you not to attack other countries, right? If, like, I was Marco Rubio, shortened it. But I would, if I was the Secretary of State, I'd be like, hey guys, don't, you can engage with them while they're actively attacking, but please do not invade another country, right? And you go, okay, well, if I'm not going to do it, what are you doing? And I will put some of our big ships out there to try and intimidate them. Yeah, okay. But if just mere presence maybe doesn't intimidate, in fact, maybe it antagonizes more attacks, do you have an obligation as a country defending your private companies who you've asked not to invade? Do you have an obligation to step it up more?
I mean, they're technically relying on you at that point now, because the state has told you not to do something, and you've said that you will take care of it. So you've kind of obligated yourself. At that point.
And it's one of those slippery things. Like, I know there's probably, I'm sure, a very well-read libertarian could make the strong argument and bring it back to some sort of minimalist approach. And probably the argument would be like, yeah, the private company can send in private security. But we don't have that situation. To bring up old Salty Jimmy again, He has this idea. I forget what he calls it, but instead of like outside the Department of Defense, like you can have a naval force that's part of wartime things, but maybe it's a Department of Maritime Activity or something like that, where it's merchant marines and it's kind of all. It's sort of the entire mariner world, where it's like, okay, so there is, a function of the Navy that is more about ensuring free commerce than it is about war or, to feel like it is literally defense, not defense. Because it used to be the wartime department is what it was called, or Department of War or whatever. And then we're like, it's defense. It's like, so it's defense when we invade other countries? like defense. So, Canada is only allowed to do, their military is only a defensive military. It's, that's all they're allowed to do. We don't let them do anything else. And so I met this guy who used to be in the Canadian military, and they were developing this laser. It was this crazy laser. It would shoot forever. Could take out a bridge. Was kind of their plan. So, you could take out a bridge. But the problem they were having was getting the laser to stop. Yeah. So they could get it to, take something out over there, but it's just going to keep going for a while. And so they were working on it. And they were like, I don't know, we're getting close. At some point, their project got shelved because they go, hey, there's no way a bridge is going to ever attack. This is not a defensive weapon. And they went, oh. So they shelved the whole project. Now, I'm sure someone got that technology. And that was back. This dude, I think I met him in the late 90s or early 2000s. And so he was talking about it in the 80s or early 90s. Yeah, so I mean, this was just a nerd. This was not a conspiracy guy. He was like, I made it. He was just this happy nerd that liked to talk about things that he did, But anyway, much of that, so that's an actual defense department because they go, hey, it's got to be defense. Our defense department seems to really go out a whole lot. Seems to be on the offensive quite a bit, I would say.
It's the new spelling of defense.
Yeah. Well, the best offense is a good defense, especially if that good defense involves nuking other countries. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully we do not get into a war with Iran. Hopefully, I mean, the Houthis aren't a serious, they're not they're not a threat. They're an inconvenience. They are
like a speed bump.
Yeah, I mean, we could Gaza them, tomorrow. I mean, it just wouldn't be a problem. The only problem is we would definitely kill all those sickly people we're pretending to care about. Or actually, not even pretending all that well. The world just doesn't know about them, doesn't get, the bad luck to be born in Yemen. Just, there is that, people talk about privilege and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the privilege of being born in Florida as opposed to Yemen or anywhere in America, even if you're in the worst neighborhood, whatever that is, probably Memphis, with the worst neighborhood in the whole country, still better than being born in Yemen, because 15 minutes away, you're out of that neighborhood. 15 minutes away in Yemen, you're still in Yemen. All right. So that is one big thing that has been happening. The other is, did you hear about these flights to El Salvador?
Yes.
So, excuse me. El Salvadorian President Bukele made a deal. I think we talked about it a while ago that he would be happy to house Venezuelan gang members. He said he'd take U.S. citizens, which we cannot do. But he said, I'll take anybody. This is my cost. For us, that funds our entire prison system. For you, it's half price or whatever. And so Marco Rubio's like, yep, that you are correct. That's much cheaper than we could do it. Here's my Amex, Well, so over the weekend, they spent some time, well, a little bit. They've been rounding up members of the, the Tren de Aragua gang, the Venezuelan gang, the people that had Colorado on the lockdown, all that kind of stuff. And so they're not a happy group of people. They're a dangerous group of people. And so they've been rounding people up. And they filled up 2 airplanes. One was mainly Venezuelans, and then I think a couple other types heading to heading to El Salvador. And then they're sending another plane load to Honduras, which might have just been Hondurans. I don't know. While they're in the midst of this judge says, "Hey, you can't fly them there, so they can't go." And so everyone's like, take that, can't go. And then ends up they went anyway, and they got to El Salvador, and they're in the prison system, and they are there now. So people said, the White House, Donald Trump's actively defying federal judge orders. The White House says it didn't defy judges' orders in deporting illegal migrants to El Salvador. The White House late Sunday responded to speculation about whether the Trump administration had defied court orders and having deported to El Salvador roughly 200 illegal migrants, including alleged members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. The administration did not refuse to comply with a court order. The press secretary, Caroline Levitt, said in a statement, "The order, which had no lawful basis, was issued after terrorist TDA aliens had already been removed from U.S. territory." I guess that's the nickname for that. Anyway, so on Saturday, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg issued an order temporarily blocking the Trump administration from using the 1789 Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal migrants. However, the flights were in the air at the time of the ruling. Lawyers told the judge that there were already 2 planes with immigrants in the air, one headed for El Salvador, the other for Honduras. Boasberg verbally ordered the planes to be turned around, but they apparently were not. And he did not include the direction in his written order. The wire service told his report, so he didn't order it written. He said it out loud. The matter appears to be setting up a legal showdown in which the Trump White House will challenge whether the courts have the legal authority. And this is going to the Supreme Court, blah, blah, blah. Levitt says, a single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft carrier full of foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil. She didn't actually mean aircraft carrier. She meant aircraft carrying, as obviously an airplane is not an aircraft carrier. So they said, plane's already in international airspace, so they don't have to listen to you.
I don't understand what the issue is, though.
Well, that's a good question.
Like, I don't get what's the judge butthurt about.
So, I think the judge is basically saying, I'm not sure that all these people qualify under the 1789 whatever Alien Act. What are they called?
Alien Enemies Act.
Alien Enemies Act. So he was saying, like, I think he's saying none of these people have had due process, and they can't all be considered part of this. And so until we have a chance to review it, they should stay detained. Now, these are not legal residents, so there's that.
And we have the Patriot Act. Crazy that I would use that as a supporting tool, but
yeah, no, that's that is something that exists.
Unfortunately,
this judge, this has been kind of a pattern. Is these federal judges appointed by like Obama or Biden with that. So normally how these things come to be is someone presents paper saying, or a filing, my client is being damaged by this law, and this law seems unconstitutional, or they are disobeying the law. So, we deserve our day in court. And, it's an emergency order, and a judge will review it and go, there's probably something to this. And they go, hey, let's halt the enforcement of this while we review the case. What's been happening this year is it seems like there's these judges who are quick to write stays on, I don't know if it's technical stay, but anyway, on the law, on the policy being enforced. So like this is basically an immigration issue, which falls under the executive branch, and they're making a call. And so the judiciary is saying, wait, don't do it. Now, the weird thing about it is there's no one with damages, right? Like, if I try to sue you, for, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't even matter. And, I go, hey, he plays his music too dang loud when he goes past my house. And they go, what damages you got? I'm like, what? It irritates me. They go, there's no there's nothing here. This isn't a court case. Like, just work it out, like there's no damage. Therefore, there's nothing here. This seems like we don't need damages. And that's, I do not wish to see an executive branch trample all over a co-equal branch. I think one of my biggest complaints is that the legislative branch has totally rolled over to the executive, and they said we don't need to be co-equal, we can be subservient, until it becomes time to pass a spending bill. Then they go, hey, we do this, but for the next 12 months we're not going to do anything. Right? Bring me another continuing resolution, and I will stand up and I will give interviews and I will be on TV, and I'll vote some way too, I guess. So I don't, but I feel like these federal judges are behaving a bit in a way that is not co-equal, but it's assumed that they have veto power. And it's one thing to have veto power. I guess in this one, it is the execution of a law. But it seems like the judge's power is too broad, like the judge isn't supposed to initiate action. The judge is supposed to give feedback on what he or she's being provided. Because like someone goes, hey, this isn't right. Here's what I think. And they go, you got a point there. They're not supposed to be like going around looking for laws they don't like and then telling the president of the United States that they can't, you can't do that. It's like, can't do what? It's like, is someone suing to stop me? Is there another party involved that's not a federal judge? And so with these, it doesn't seem to be that. So that's where it kind of starts to get squirrely for me, So the judge came back though, because when they were like, hey, sorry, too late, So obviously the judge is pretty cranky about it. And so now, as of today, let's see, by 12 p.m. tomorrow, the defendants, in this case, that would be the president of the United States and the whole executive branch, so submit a declaration providing the following details. What time did the plane take off from U.S. soil and from where? What time did it leave U.S. airspace? What time did it land in which foreign country, including if it made more than one stop? What time were individuals subject solely to the proclamation transferred out of U.S. custody? Don't know what that means. And how many people were aboard solely on the basis of the proclamation? So ordered, da-da-da. So I think that might be about, like, saying you're an illegal, you're getting out. You're in a gang, you're getting out. So by proclamation, as opposed to due process. I don't know. It's one of those deals where you go, okay, like, I get that you want that info, but they can just lie to you.
Yeah. What flight?
Yeah, well, it's like the auto pen, the auto pen stuff we talked about with Biden last week. You know, all it takes is they go, hey, because Trump said now, he's like, all those pardons, null and void. He didn't sign them. He was on vacation. He didn't know about them, you know? Unfortunately, all it takes is Biden going, yeah, I called him. You go, wait, you called him? Yeah, I called him. I told him to do that. Then that's it. That's it. The whole thing goes away. If Biden goes, I knew about the pardons and I authorized them. I mean, that's done. That's a pardon. You can't undo that pardon. Like, it happened. And it's like, you were on the beach. I talked to him earlier. I said, do it. That's it. I mean, that is how much evidence is required. I mean, for real, like, it's, you know, the presidential pardon powers are pretty broad. And if you can use the auto pen for it anyway, and he goes, pardon those people. Use the auto pen. I go, okay, sir, I'll do that. I mean, that's just that, you know. So I don't know. I don't think there's any way to really win that one. All right, so this is Stephen Miller, who I'm torn on this fella. But so this is him on CNN being asked about this flight of people. Yeah, that's right. I should put in my little headphones, and I think it's rewound far enough. All right, let's see what these people have to argue about.
Speak for the White House. I just want you to answer that one simple question.
I am. Ready? Here we go. Under a proper reading of the Constitution, district court judges provide relief to individual plaintiffs seeking relief. District court judges do not have the authority, as a general matter, to enjoin the functioning of the executive branch. But their authority is at its lowest point when the president is exercising his powers as commander-in-chief. And I asked you a question, you never answered it. Can a judge enjoin troop movements overseas? Can a district court judge enjoin troop movements overseas?
Stephen,
yes or no?
I am not going to get into the
just say no, and then you'll know that I'm right.
This is a
just
separate
say no,
question,
and you'll know that I'm right.
Okay, we're not talking about other troops overseas.
President,
I need to ask you about something else.
The president issued a proclamation delineating in detail how the Venezuelan regime sent this gang, this terrorist organization, to our shores. And by the way, and I love being here, but all the outrage that we are seeing from the Democrat Party and from the corporate media, none of that outrage was expressed when little Jocelyn Nungare was tortured and beaten to death. None of that outrage was expressed when our nation was flooded by illegal aliens.
I have just been simply trying to get a simple answer to a simple question. No outrage necessary about whether or not the White House is the head of the court.
But I am.
But I need to ask you one more question. I'm going to have to let you go.
Democrats defending trained Aragua instead of celebrating President Trump expelling these terrorists from our midst. And I'm glad for the opportunity to explain how the separation of powers does work. If the president has to litigate every national security action with 700 district court judges, then we don't have a functioning democracy.
Let me ask you one other question.
Not again. So I think there's a pretty strong point this fella made at the end, especially that to show, because you hear federal judge and you go, well, hell, I mean, federal judge says not to do it. You probably shouldn't. I mean, it seems like overreach to do it, but like, 700 of them. And if like literally any one of these 700 like district judges can just like pop off about laws, it's like, all right, like let's get some activist judges out there. Let's get people going after all the laws. Just go, become a judge and be like, I strike down, drugs being illegal. Like they're legal now.
I'm about to go get a law degree right now.
I know, right? I'm gonna be a judge. I think later on, which I thought was in this clip, he was reading about the Alien Act, and and there's like three reasons that the president could deport under that and or expel people under that. It was like, one, if there's an invasion; two, if it was, a bunch of people coming in that were like the nefarious sort or something like that; and like third was like if a bunch of people were coming in and endangering American citizens or something like that. He's like technically, we got all three on this one. We just need one, And so you go, well, hell, I don't know. It's this is the problem with like how big and convoluted our government is, and it just, when each side is in power, they use a little bit too much power, and when each side is the one not in power, they suddenly start talking about the Constitution and laws and stuff. And sometimes it's literal. Sometimes they're, Second Amendment shall not be infringed, And so, like, sometimes it's that easy. Sometimes people say some stuff and you go, well, hold on. Like, that's not really what it means, Like, oh, First Amendment, well, you can't scream fire in a movie theater, Charlie. Yes, you can. You literally can. That is not a thing. But, so sometimes it kind of meanders. So this is one of those, like, because all these judges happen to be Democrats, right? They're Democratic appointees. Some by Biden himself, some by Obama, but I repeat myself. And they're not, there's no group, because like I have heard people, you don't know the extent to which these stories are true, but I'm sure they're true. Some people are like, hey, my brother wasn't in a gang. He was just Venezuelan. And, he had tattoos. They said those are gang tattoos. He had a rose tattooed on his neck, and he likes it. And so, it could be one of those things where it's like, you're lying to cover for your brother. He was in a gang. It could be like, yeah, he was, I think, a barber or an artist or something. Whatever he was. And that sucks. I mean, I know 2 kids. I think one was here on a visa. I think the other one was here from Venezuela. Very nice fellas. I like them both. I think the little brother kind of scooted with big bro and maybe was questionably here, but he makes a hell of a paella, and I haven't had that in a while. It's actually really good.
Good,
dude. It's like he puts like jumbo shrimp, little shrimp, octopus, scallops.
Oh wow, he goes all out.
He does the whole thing, the mussels. It's so good.
Nice.
Yeah, sausage. Anyway, I feel real bad if that guy ended up in El Salvador. And so, I think about that where you go like, well, that guy should not be in with a bunch of criminals, And so if this lady's brother was this kind of dude where she's like, he was an artist in Venezuela, now he's a barber or whatever. It's like, I do feel bad. Like that is something we should try to avoid. But there's like, we're not the only country in the world with immigration laws. We're just the most lax about enforcing them. We have the most bleeding heart approach, which in many ways in our legal system, we need a strong base of bleeding hearts. I have a relative who, as a kid, my dad described him as a hanging judge. And I was like, okay. As a little kid, you're like, I guess that's cool. You get the bad guys in jail, And then I looked him up not too long ago. And I'm like, oh, I think he really likes saying guilty. I think it's just one of those things. It's like, nah, he's a bit of a butthole, there's black and white, there is no gray. And I would say that if he is the type of fellow that thinks if you've made it to his court, you've done something wrong, which is probably not the role of a judge. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, Constitution, all that stuff. So if we had everybody like that guy, which in some places you have a lot of that guy, and like you see like even my cousin Vinny. Remember my cousin Vinny? You can have whole towns that are just corrupt, and you just you're here, go in jail. Pay me or go to jail. And so I think it's good to have a good amount of bleeding hearts. That being said, for the last 4 years, and even before then, I mean, there's no question that during the first Trump administration and towards the end of the Obama administration, there were NGOs encouraging people all over South America to come to the U.S. They were teaching people to say asylum, and they were running radio ads in South America. They made it sound like it was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. It wasn't, but it's people. Hola, ¿cómo está? And just saying, South America. That's what.
It already sounds like a great ad.
Hola, ¿cómo está? Soy Barry. So like, there's money funded probably from USAID, probably through George Soros, that ran commercials on the radio. Come to America, you'll be set for life. Just get here, say these things, then you can sign up for free medical and they were advertising the welfare type programs, right? And we as a country can't actually afford Medicare, Social Security, welfare. Like we can't afford them already. Like we can't afford them. In fact, the fact that we are reproducing at less than the optimal rate is probably a good thing once we get past the boomer generation. Maybe reduction in population might help us a little bit. I mean, but anyway, but we can't afford it for the U.S. citizens. Now all of a sudden you're flooding in, like Fetterman said, the population of Pittsburgh every month. Like, holy crap. And then, like, especially when you tell, and don't get me wrong, we know plenty of them get jobs at construction sites and yard crews and hotels and kitchens. So a lot of them are working, a lot of them are working. But any of the ones that come over that aren't, that's just new on the door. And the fact that we're giving them those cards where they can fly anywhere, anytime they want to.
They got like whole kits, like welcome kits.
Yeah. And just the free flights all over. You could tour. You could go to Hawaii for a little bit, chill out, and then and probably be drawing a little bit of cash on the monthly. And so you could do Hawaii for a little bit, go check out California. I mean, if I came over, I would definitely tour around a little bit. Like, if I wasn't one of these moms trying to make a better life, if I was one of these military aged males, as they said, that was coming across the border, I would be like, man, I'm going on vacation, and I would go everywhere, sign up for those benefits, and I'd bounce all over the place. Probably not to Detroit, but lots of other places, because that just sounds great. Anyway, we can't afford that either. So I don't know. Because we've spent so much time in between corruption, advancing people towards our country, and then incompetence / corruption, allowing it to continue. We do have to get people. We have to deport people. It sucks. It's not nice, but we have to do it. I mean, luxury hotels filled with people. We can't sustain this. And the fact that some of them are in gangs, some of these kids aren't, and they're getting swept up, and that sucks. But the ICE, they took this app that they had, Department of Homeland Security, was that part? Anyway, they had an app where it used to be you could book your hearing, and you can kind of book your travel. So you're south of the border still. You download the app, hey, I'll be there this time to set up my appointment to claim asylum, and then I'd like to fly to Nashville. And they repurposed that app, so now you can report self-deportation. You just be like, hey, I'll be gone by this day. Please don't lock me up. And also, obviously, we get your location. But it's, I just think as disappointing as it is for people who've come here in the last 4 years, like all those populations of Pittsburgh, I think you gotta go home and just do it the right way. And that's the thing. That's one of the things they're saying is like, if you go home, you can come right back and do it the right way. If we deport you, you gotta wait like 5 or 10 years or something like that. So it is, I don't know, is a bit of a carrot. So there has been some other things. Let's see. Oh, actually, just to, so people have been obviously having kittens over Trump defying the judge's order. It is the worst thing that any president has ever done in the history of everything. So here is the Federalist saying a little thing about Joe Biden. Former President Joe Biden openly admitted to defying the Supreme Court. Not a district court. This is the Supreme Court. Multiple times during his administration, the media barely blinked. But when President Donald Trump challenged the lower court activists, blah, 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 it's a constitutional crisis. Biden didn't just defy the Supreme Court's 2023 ruling on student debt. He bragged about it. Well, son of a bitch, what do you know? To quote Joseph Biden. I promised to ease student debt for millions of folks. The Supreme Court blocked me, but it didn't stop me. The Supreme Court tried to block me from leaving student debt. They didn't stop me. I'm going to keep going. By Biden's own admission, he was defying the Supreme Court. But the press said nothing. Axios' Serene Habashi, I don't know who these people are. So the ruling was a mere setback, noting Biden was able to provide relief by circumventing the need for congressional or court approval. That would be 2 co-equal branches. So he got rid of 2 of them. 2 co-equal branches. CNN's Katie Lobosco, I don't know, reported how Biden found ways to continue canceling student loan debt despite Supreme Court ruling. Although the Supreme Court struck down President Joe Biden's signature student loan forgiveness program in late June 2023, his administration has found ways to cancel more than $48 billion in debt since then. Lobosco noted that Biden's actions simply drew some skepticism about whether it was legal to announce he was canceling more debt just 2 weeks after the Supreme Court knocked down Biden's signature loan forgiveness program. And New York Times, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you get the point. It's, press was pretty happy about things. They were like, look what Biden did. What a clever boy he is. He saved the day. So obviously, a little different take. And the difference here is the student relief thing. They enacted it. I can't remember if I guess did they vote on it or was it an executive action?
I thought it was an executive action, but then, yeah, it was struck down. But then he used some sort of act in order to get around it.
I think he just did a new executive order to get around it. Let's see. He didn't just say, he bragged about it. Well, whatever. The setback is... Okay. Yeah, because... Oh, yeah, that's right. They said it didn't need congressional approval either. So, yeah. It's okay, yeah. He just went through and just did it. He said, educate, it's an executive thing, I guess. I can do this. And so after it happened, people wrote challenges to it. They did briefs where, you can't do this. This is financially responsible. You don't have the authority. This has to go through Congress. And so that was challenged up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made a ruling. That's how it normally happens. Normally that stops people. Biden did it again. I'm pretty sure again it was struck down. I don't know. But yeah, they used to be cool with it. They're also a different judge. This is another district court judge who was appointed by Barack Obama. He is saying that Elon Musk is possibly circumventing the Constitution. Now, this is where it gets screwy. Actually, here, we'll go ahead and read some of this. So Theodore Chong, who was appointed by Obama, ruled in favor of 26 former employees So at least this one, former employees did bring something up. The aid agency and decided that there should be an effort to delay a premature final shutdown while litigation. So that's saying don't shut down USAID, right? The judge also blocked any Doge employees from taking any action related to USAID unless given express permission by agency staff, which is how they've always worked. He said Musk's actions have run afoul of the Constitution's appointment clause because billionaire businessman is serving as the Doge administrator but has not been confirmed by the Senate. This, I kind of agree with. If a president could escape appointments clause scrutiny by having advisors go beyond the traditional role of White House advisors who communicate the president's priorities to agency heads and instead exercise significant authority throughout the federal government so as to bypass duly appointed officers, the appointments clause would be reduced to nothing more than a technical formality. So I agree with that. I think the difference is... so I agree with that. I think the way that they have formed Doge is an interesting one, right? Because the president does appoint lots of advisors that don't have to be confirmed, you know? They work in the White House. You know, they're not heads of anything, but they're advisors, you know, Susan Rice, people like this. Well, she might have been appointed, I think, but for Obama. Anyway, she's had different jobs. But what they've done careful with Doge is they advise, you know, they fire a bunch of people, but it's, you know, they advise people should be fired. They don't take the action. They advise, you know, and then the head of the department takes the action or maybe gets fired. And so, you know, there's definitely a bit of they're advising holding a pistol, you know, but it's good advice. And then, so, you know, with Elon Musk, it doesn't sound like he's in on the day-to-day. I think he's in on helping point, like, let's go that direction, or maybe even confirming, like, our plan is to run this sort of thing, to look for this sort of thing, and, like, you know, he calls himself technical support, and so I think he helps the nerds come up with a nerd plan, and then let's go that way, you know? Because here is, let's see, here's this little part that kind of sounds counter to what this judge just said, because that one makes sense, right? So the International Development Agency was one of the first efforts of Musk's push to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, especially targeting its foreign programs. Trump administration identified programs ranging from contraceptives for Afghanistan to LGBT diversity programs for European countries as clear evidence that foreign aid needed to be paused and reevaluated, ultimately leading to Secretary of State Marco Rubio assuming control of the agency. Not Elon Musk and not Doge. The Secretary of State, who was confirmed appointment, actually leads the agency. And reducing his programs by 80%, Marco Rubio did. Rubio. Now the status of that reduction is unclear, but that's the funny part. So, Secretary of State Marco Rubio steps in. He goes, "Hey, we're cutting everything by 80%. And thank you, Doge, for pointing out some stuff." Where's Musk in that? You know? Like, yeah, he pointed out whatever, but they go, "Hey, look, here's a report of what we found. What do you think we should do with it?" And they go, "All right, we need to get someone in charge. I'll do the right thing. Rubio, you go in there. Look at this plan." He goes, "This is stupid. Y'all are fired. We're shutting down 80%. Did not close it down. Earlier in this article, it was to delay a premature final shutdown. Well, that's interesting. There's no shutdown. There's no shutdown. I mean, there hopefully will be a shutdown. But right now, there's no shutdown. So what's this judge even talking about?
Yeah, I mean, this almost seems like just the way Doge operates is like your company gets an accounting audit. This is the final report. Make your adjustments.
Right. And like, yeah. And especially if you're, I don't know, say you're a company that has a fiduciary responsibility, you know, even as something as simple as a condo association. You know, say you have a fiduciary responsibility and you get an audit run and they go, "Hey, look, big problem here. You are hemorrhaging cash in these different directions that does not properly care for the people you have a responsibility to take care for." And don't get me wrong, luckily for all of us, the Department of Treasury, the entire federal government, state and local governments, don't have any sort of fiduciary responsibility to take care of its shareholders, also known as citizens. Condo associations do. Condo associations. There are 21 units in my building, Charlie, and I have a fiduciary responsibility for these people. But no one in any elected office or hired by the government has a fiduciary responsibility.
Fine. Makes sense.
It's fine. It's fine. It's sorry. This just kind of occurred to me in this sort of way, where I was just like, that is something. But yeah. So, but if someone came to us and be like, hey, ends up you've been paying an air conditioning company for the last 3 years, but you haven't used them in the last 3 years. You've been using a different company. It would be like, like we can cancel payments right away. Let's see what we can claw back. We got to figure this out, Yep. And then if we went, shut up. We were just like, shut up. Just, like, what a nerd. Eventually, we're liable. I mean, immediately we're liable, but eventually someone finds out. Mm-hmm. And then we're liable like hail. So it's, like you said, like an audit. It's that kind of deal where they're attempting some level of responsibility to say, hey, like, there's a problem. Money's being hemorrhaged. Don't worry about that. That's my robot in the closet.
Let's try not to be distracted.
Tina, I told you to shut up.
ADD kicked in.
All right, here, we'll do this to kind of close out. This is the distraction for the day. It's pushing 6 o'clock right now, Eastern time, on this day in question that Mr. Trump's about to talk about. So let's hear what old Donnie Pooh's got to say. Did I already do this? I don't know if I did this. All right, come on, Donnie Pooh.
But while we're here, I thought it would be appropriate. We are tomorrow announcing and giving all of the Kennedy files. So people have been waiting for decades for this, and I've instructed my people that are responsible, lots of different people, put together by Tulsi Gabbard, and that's going to be released tomorrow. We have a tremendous amount of paper. You've got a lot of reading. I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said, just don't redact. You can't redact. But we're going to be releasing the JFK files.
No redaction.
And that would be tomorrow. Do you have anything
Tomorrow
else
would
to
be
add
today.
to that, Carolyn? So that's a big announcement. They've been waiting for that for decades. Then I said during the campaign I'd do it, and I'm a man of my word. So tomorrow you have the JFK files. What time will they be released? Tomorrow afternoon. Okay.
Have you seen what's in the files? Have you read them?
I've heard about them.
Was there,
Anything interesting?
It's going to be very interesting.
was there an executive summary supplied to you, Mr. President?
No, I'm not doing summaries. You'll write your own summary. It's many pages, isn't it?
Wow.
That's
The ultimate dunk right there.
So write your own. It's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to read 60,000 pages. What are you, crazy? It is 5:37 p.m. Eastern time. And there are no there's no JFK files.
He said files and not redacted.
Yep, there are no files. I mean, Israel did start bombing the hell out of Gaza again.
Huh.
But JFK files are coming out today. Huh. Yeah. No, it's anyway, don't even worry about that.
What's going on?
Yeah, they didn't release. They said hostages didn't come out fast enough, so now they're going to go back to bombing the crap out of Gaza. But anyway, JFK files this afternoon. I mean,
Any minute.
well, it's evening now, so we got to wait for the afternoon.
But
Charlie, this afternoon. It's this evening now.
that already
Charlie?
happened.
JFK files.
Did we cancel daylight savings time then?
Man, I'm telling you, like, the Epstein thing has been a big misstep. Like, the only thing that's going to redeem them of that is if, say, they come out in, I don't know, let's say 6 months, right? but it comes out with a stack of arrests like this and like cases, and they go, yo, sorry
Sorry it took so long.
yeah, sorry, like we were going to release it, but we actually have cases against, Bill Gates, blah, blah, blah. Who, I mean, I'm assuming Bill Gates, whatever, who knows. But, a stack of people we've built cases against, and we sent people to arrest them today. And so we didn't want people to flee, and now we've got a bunch of cases to try. I think if that happened, I think everyone would go, all right. But I think they don't have 6 months. I think they're losing support, and people are losing faith in them, especially as he drums towards war in different directions. And I think that if they Epstein the JFK files, it's just like, why would anybody, like, who's going to, like, no one's believing them already. Like, it needs to come out today at some point. And, like, the only thing that I can hope is that Trump's wanting to not look like a fool, has him somewhere there going, like, release it, like, because he's the one looking, like, he made this announcement. He did it. He said we're releasing it. Pam Bondi did before. This one's out of Trump's mouth. All right. You got anything to...
Well, I'm just wondering if he's slow stepping because his name might appear on there.
On the Epstein thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. But it's one of those things like, why would he push so hard for it and talk about it so much? I mean, bluffing, I guess. But, like, here's the thing. They've had the book for a while, right? They had the book while they were going after Trump for everything. They invented crimes to go after him for. If they had the book, they would have gone after him.
Yeah.
Because they would have been like, they would have pulled it out and said, here's Donald Trump's name. It says on this date he came, he got with this girl this age. And he's like, we've got a tape right here. And we're going, like, tell me I'm beautiful. Tell me, am I the best you've ever had? Some say I'm the best they've ever had. And, so they would pull out all the stops, I feel like, on him. That's the only thing that makes me think, like, there's nothing there that has to do with him. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? But they need to get it going because it's so far that and these strikes are really harming him with his base. And if he loses his base in month 3, or are we still in month 2? Whatever, because you got 100 days to really get a lot of stuff done, and he can't be losing his base during that 100 days and then fighting against midterms, fighting against all this stuff. Like, it's the whole thing comes undone. Like, they need to start having some answers.
There's also the MLK files too.
Yeah, they said that those are going to come out sometime soon. Just the FBI killed him. The FBI killed him. That's what happened. They killed him. FBI hated the civil rights movement. They killed him.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, they got this redneck in Memphis to do it. Do you know how easy it is to find a redneck in Memphis in the 60s that wanted to shoot MLK? Very easy. Like, very easy. And JFK, for that matter. And so, like, my dad was at military school, and he got high fives all around when, like, that wasn't for JFK. That was for MLK. That's not necessarily great. But it was just how racist some people were. They're like, hey, Memphis, good job. My dad didn't shoot him, okay? He just happened to be from Memphis. But there was a lot of people upset with the civil rights movement.
Dad's like, why are you high-fiving me?
But, a lot of people were upset with the civil rights movement and like to be like, you're going to be a hero. You're doing it for the FBI, and we got your back. And, pull the trigger. Go see you later, redneck. But, I don't know. Just release the stuff. We already know what happened, pretty much. It's probably more corrupt, but, that's the basis. All right. Well, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Watch us on the YouTubes, the Rumbles, the Spotifys, the Apples. Make sure you do subscribe and set up for the alerts so you know when our new stuff comes out. All that stupid stuff that you're supposed to say. What do you got for the folks until next week?
I have nothing.
Cool. Remember JFK was kind of a rapist. See ya.